Now you are going to learn about the salt. 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 Right. Now look at the board. Firstly, tell me how to form the salt. How to form the salt? Firstly, tell me how to form the salt. You must keep remember, you already learned about salt are made by reaction of acid with bases, no? Acid react with base, form the salt and water. Form the salt and water. Form the salt and water. Right. When we consider about acid, acid mainly there are two types. What are the two types of acid? One of them is strong acid. Another types of acid is weak acid. Bases. Bases also mainly there are two types. What are the two types of base? Strong base, weak base. Weak base. Then tell me, now when we consider about the salt, salt shows, some salt shows the acidic properties. Acidic properties. Some salt shows the basic properties. Basic properties. Some salt shows the neutral properties. Neutral properties. How to show? Acidic properties, basic properties, and neutral properties. Right now, think about some salt is formed by the strong acid react with weak base. Strong acid react with weak base. What is the types of salt produced by the strong acid react with weak base? Strong acid එක weak base එකක් එක්ක react කරලා හදන salt එක මොනවද පේන්න? Acidic properties, the basic properties, the neutral properties. කවුද strong එකන? Acids නේ එහෙනම් එයා මොකද්ද පේන්නන්නේ? Acidic properties. Acidic properties. Now think about weak acid react with strong base. Weak acid react with strong base. What are the properties sourced by the salt? Basic properties, no, basic properties. And also now think about salt is produced by reacting strong acid with strong base, and also weak acid react with weak base. What are the properties the salt? What are the properties sourced by the salt? By forming strong acid react with strong base, weak acid react with weak base. Neutral properties. Neutral properties. Right. Yeah. Now you must keep remember salt is made by acid react with base, form the salt and water. Salt and water. Right. Now when we consider about the acid, acids mainly there are two types. What are the main two types of acid? Strong acid and weak acid. Another types of acid is bases mainly there are two types, strong bases and weak bases. Right. Salt can be made by strong acid react with strong base. No? Right. What are the properties of the salt formed by the strong acid and strong base? Neutral properties. And also salt can be prepared by reacting weak acid with weak base. What are the properties? What is the properties of the salt formed by the reacting weak acid and weak base? Neutral properties. And also salt can be made by reacting strong acid with weak base. Strong acid with weak base. What is the properties of the salt formed like that? Acidic properties. And also salts can be produced by reacting weak acid with strong base. Weak acid with strong base. What is the properties? Basic properties. Could you understand? Right. Now we learned about the bases. No, sorry, salt. Under the salt you learned about how to form the salt. Salt is formed by reaction of acid with bases. Reaction of acid with bases. Right. Now you can write down. Properties of the salt. Now we are going to learn about the properties of the salt. What are the properties of the salt? First one you must keep remember, salt are crystalline. 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 Write down. Second one, solid compound. Solid compound. Solid compounds. Third property of the salt, most of salt are dissolved in water. Most of the salts are dissolved in water. Dissolved in water. Next one, have high melting and boiling point. Melting and boiling points. Melting and boiling points. Properties of the salt. Now we learned about properties of the salt. No, tell me what are the properties of the salt as you learned? Crystalline, solid compounds. Most of the salt are dissolved in water. Have high melting and boiling point. Right, start right. Those are the properties of the salt. Properties of the right gang. Right. Under the salt, right. Under the salt, firstly we learned about what is the salt and how to form the salt. After that you learned about properties of the salt. Now we are going to learn about the uses of sodium chloride. Uses of sodium chloride. Sodium chloride. Uses of the sodium chloride. Tell me what are the uses of the sodium chloride? One of them is sodium chloride is used to flavor the food. Flavor the food. ආහාර රස ගන්නවන. දැන් මොනවද මේ sodium chloride කියලා කියන්නේ? ලුණුනේ. නේද? ලුණු අපි දන්නවා කෑමට දානවනේ. තව එකක් තමයි මොකද්ද? Used as a food preservatives. Food preservatives කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ආහාර කල් තියා ගන්න දෙයක්. දැන් ගොඩක් දේවල් වේලනකොට ලුණු දාලා දැන් කරවල වගේ දේවල් ලුණු දාලා වේලන්නේ නේ. තව to produce chemicals such as chlorine. ඔයාලට electrochemistry කියලා පාඩමක් තියෙනවා. ඒකෙදි ඉගෙන ගන්න දිනවා පුතේ electrolysis of sodium chloride. ඒකේ ඔයාලා ඉගෙන ගන්නවා sodium chloride electrolysis කරනකොට by product එකක් විදියට chlorine gas එක පිට වෙනවා පුතේ. chlorine gas එක පිට වෙනවා. So to produce the chlorine gas, sodium chloride is used. Next one, to produce hydrochloric acid. Next one, to produce sodium hydroxide. To produce sodium carbonate by solvay process to glaze the earthware. Glaze කියලා කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? ඔපදාන. ඒ මැටි භාජන වගේ දේවල්. තව එකක් තමයි to make soap and also used in tanning. Tanning කියලා කියන්නේ සම් පදම් කරනවා. නේද? සත්තුන්ගේ හැම අරගෙන විවිධ කර්මාන්තශාල සපත්තු හදන්න හරි නේද? බෙර හදන්න හරි මොනවට හරි මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒක අපි කියන tanning. නේද? ඒවට පාවිච්චි කරනවා. right ලියන්න පළවෙනි එක ලියා ගන්න. First one, to flavor the food. To flavor the food. Second one, to preserve the food. To preserve the food. Next one, to produce chlorine gas. Next one, to produce sodium hydroxide. To produce sodium hydroxide. Next one, to produce sodium carbonate. Sodium carbonate. Next one, to glaze. glaze earthware. 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 Next one, to make soap. To make soap. To produce hydrochloric acid. To produce hydrochloric acid. Right. Those are the uses of the sodium. Copper sulfate. Uses of copper sulfate. CuSO4. Copper sulfate. Copper sulfate has the two forms. What are the two forms of copper sulfate? Anhydrous copper sulfate and hydrous copper sulfate. What is the color of the anhydrous copper sulfate? Color of the anhydrous copper sulfate is white color. So what is the color of the hydrous copper sulfate? Blue color. Right. Right. Then what are the uses? What are the uses of the copper sulfate? One of them is copper sulfate used as the fungicide. Fungicide. දිලීරනාශකයක් විදිහට පාවිච්චි කරනවා නේද? Used as fungicide in agriculture. In agriculture. In agriculture. In agriculture, copper sulfate are used as the fungicide. Fungicide. Another uses of the copper sulfate is copper sulfate used to produce Benedict solution. Benedict solution. Remember Benedict solution? For what Benedict solution are used? For what Benedict solution are used? Benedict solution are used to make the Benedict solution are used to identify the monosaccharide. No? Monosaccharide. Remember the test? We take the glucose solution and then add equal volume of the Benedict. After that, heat the solution by immersing in the water bath. At the beginning of the experiment, color of the solution is blue. And then it turns into green. And then yellow. After that, orange. Finally, break red precipitate. No, you must keep remember the color of the Benedict solution is blue color, and also copper sulfate are used to produce the Benedict solution. Next one, copper sulfate can be used in electroplating. Electroplating. Tell me as you think. What do you mean by electroplating? Electroplating means plating one metal on the another metal. Plating one metal on the another metal. No, the process of plating one metal on the another metal is known as electroplating. Right. If you want to plate the copper metal, copper sulfate solution is used for this. Next one, used in paint industry. Used in paint industry. Paint industry. Paint industry. Right. Now we learned about uses of the copper sulfate. No, under the uses of the copper sulfate, you learned about 4 uses of the copper sulfate. What are the 4 uses of the copper sulfate you learned? Used as the fungicide in agriculture, used to produce Benedict solution, used in electroplating, used in paint industry. Could you understand? Right. Now you can write down uses of the copper sulfate. Uses of the copper sulfate.